Welcome again, everyone. We're just here with my good friend, Tyler. And yeah, we're gonna talk about some really cool stuff today. As you guys know me, I work in tech sales. I've been doing that for quite a few years now. But we've really just been interested in how people grow and the challenges that people face in their lives. And so turn it over to Tyler so he'll give us a quick intro or long. We'd love to hear your story, man, and how you are or why you are the way you are today and the meaning of life, if you have that as well.
Sure. I might be able to pull that one out in about 30 seconds. Now, a little bit about me too. Man, most of my friends say if I could write a book about my life or movie, maybe a Netflix series, it would be great because it's full of action-packed drama, all that good stuff that we love seeing. There's some tear-jerking moments and moments that will make you laugh. But a little bit about me: was a police officer in my early 20s, enjoyed that, loved the adrenaline side of life, but then looked into changing careers by going back to school, finishing my degree, and seeing how I can get more on that hands-on personal experience in hospitality. And then I stumbled into oil and gas due to COVID with layoffs in the hospitality industry. Really found a love for sales and connecting with people, providing them with something that not only met their needs, but provided a customer service that would say, wow, I want to come back because not only does this guy handle and take care of me, he makes his communications well. I always know that I'm taken care of whenever I reach out to Tyler. So that was profounding in my life to go, man, I really like this, and how can I dig in more? So I stepped into tech sales to where I met Daman. Loved his personality. He really changed and added some spice into my life about what I'm missing out on and how I could get better. Played sports growing up, loved coaching, and how I could grow through the use of a coach. But Daman's point of view and how he approached things and asked questions really opened me up to not only think for myself, but then to act upon it. But the biggest changer was me asking other people questions so I can dig deeper and ask them what do they see and how I could get better in certain areas. So that's a little bit about me in a nutshell.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for sharing. One of the things that I heard, and I think I knew this, but it's interesting that there's a theme. There's a couple of themes. One of them is not only, you said you're an officer, then you went back to school. You were in hospitality, oil and gas, and then overall tech. What I'm hearing is like multiple areas of starting over. Talk to me about like, what does starting over mean to you, and how do you approach starting over? Like, I don't think that's something that people readily say, like, oh, I'm gonna go become a beginner again. Like
that's one thing that I still, even as of last January, that was a hard start over again. And there's always that time where you wrestle with, I guess you could say, demons about it, where it's like, man, I got to do this again. I got hit in the face. How do I get back up? I know it's easy to say, you can always have a cheerleader or someone on the side saying, hey, you can do it, get up and go. My mom was phenomenal at that growing up. Like, hey, just almost think the happy thoughts, just be positive. It'll work out. And that's true in a sense, but at a point, you develop this resilience, and a lot of it's founded in my faith in Jesus Christ. That probably the biggest one that has helped me stay on the straight and narrow to keep going. But yeah, every time you get hit and it feels like it's a sucker punch to the gut, it's hard. But I think it's, how do I get back, and how do I surround myself with the people that are encouraging me in the right direction, and taking time to meditate and think about the next step and not rushing into that one. Just because it might be the best first offer, there could be other offers coming down the pipe.
Yeah. How does that tie into, and the other theme I heard was this theme of being able to serve and wanting to serve. Like, how is that tying to the jobs that you've done? And when it sounds like you came to a realization that this is something that I enjoy doing.
Yeah. When I was a police officer, again, I love the woo-woos, the sirens, driving fast, being that superhero type mentality of, hey, I'm here to protect and serve. But one of it, I just gotten out of policing, went to a restaurant, and the waiter there was actually a guy I had arrested. And he said, "Hey, do you remember me?" And I was like, "No, I don't." And then he started talking. I was at this spot, and I was like, "I know exactly what you're about. I do remember you." Long story short, he said, "I just want to let you know the day that you did that, that you arrested me, changed my life." And it wasn't because I took him to juvie, because he was a juvenile at the time. He said it was the fact that you actually spoke to me like I was a person. You reached out to me, you asked questions, you wanted to talk to me, and you cared for me. He said that changed my life. That was a wake up call for me that there are people out there that actually care. So I take that into every job that I go to. How
Yeah.
do I make this person know that they feel that they're cared for? Even if it's in sales or hospitality or policing, people matter. And that's the biggest part of life,
Yeah.
is that serving aspect.
I'll come back to that. I have a couple more strings to pull there if we have time.
Sure, sure.
But the question I ask everyone is help me to understand the last year. Like what's one thing, like what's the biggest change that you've made and the way that you've grown through that? Talk to me if there has been obstacles that led to that insight. I'm curious about that.
Sure. Well, I wish I could say, this was recorded back when COVID just started, because that was like a huge obstacle. And I was like, man, we're finally over that. I don't have to really worry about it. I got a good job. Everything, from the higher ups on down saying, hey, everything looks great. We got the runway. But this past year it had its ups and downs, and getting sidelined by a loss of a job turned into another great opportunity for me and my family. Uh, and I'm happy to be where I'm at. But one of the biggest things that and the question was, what have I changed, or what have I allowed to change this past year? Is that correct?
Or yeah, the biggest area of growth that you'd seen in the last year and what sparked it.
It would be being open, being willing to be open. Not only I'm married, been married for 13 years. And that again is a phenomenal story. Just because my wife is, I told her this past weekend, actually, I said, the reason why I married you is because I admire you. She's like, but you could pick anybody. I was like, no, I admire you because of who you are. So being open with people, and people like you, Dom, when you were my manager, you were willing to take the time to say, here's how can we get better. You would ask the question, and then you'd allow me to hold myself accountable by bringing it up to you. And then surrounding myself with those people. That's been the biggest area of growth for me, is allowing myself to say, I call my brother once a week now and say, hey, here's some areas that I'm working on. And I want to share with you how I've grown, how certain things this week I may have been doing great, but here's when this happened that I'm trying to fix and work on. Here's what I decided to do. It was either for the good or worse, but having that soundboard, or that backing board, to be able to just speak out loud and let other people speak into me, and then be able to hear it and apply it. Even if I didn't agree with it, I would take it as, hey, they see it from a different perspective. It's not my thoughts. They see something I don't see. So let me take time to focus on that.
Yeah. And the thing that's coming to my mind hearing you say that, it sounds like, okay, this happened mainly in the last year. Is there a reason for all the years before that this wasn't necessarily something that was front and center to you?
Sure, yeah, I'm a Texas boy, I guess, and we get it done the right way by ourselves. Whatever you need done, we can do it. No, it's a pride thing, is what it comes down to. Is like, hey, I know I'm capable. I'm plenty smart enough. I've read the books. I've done the research. I've gathered the information. I've thought about it myself. But just like every good athlete, they have a trainer or a coach, someone that the coach isn't typically better than that athlete, but they see things that athlete doesn't in the process. That little triggers and little tricks that they can do to change their body. I know you're a runner, and when I was in high school, my coach was like, hey, if you just go hand to pocket to ear, that can add this much. I was like, hand to pocket, the ear. What? That's stupid. But I tried. And I was like, okay, I shaved my 40 down to 4.7. I was a big boy back then, but I wasn't a running back. But I went from 5 to 4.7. I was like, okay, that's a cool little trick.
Yeah. I think the reason why that's, man, I love hearing that, right? Like I'm just looking at my notes and the willingness to be open. And you mentioned it's a pride thing. Excuse me. You mentioned it's a pride thing. And I'm trying to like put that together with your desire to serve. You're out there doing this for other people, but then it didn't sound like there was this openness to allow other people to do what you were doing for them. And so even though you were starting over and being a beginner, I'm always curious about like sometimes we played safe and it may look like we're growing, but we're actually not. It's like, if we think about it, like, are we doing the same experience? Like, let's say we live 20 years, we're having the same experience 20 years over, or do we actually have 20 years of experience? Like, are we actually growing, or are we actually just like playing it? Like it's like a calculated playing it safe, right?
Yeah.
And so when we really put ourselves out there, it's really in us. So it's like, I really don't know. And almost redefining what power looks like. Also redefine what masculinity looks like, of a genuine place of awareness of what you don't know. Sometimes there is power in that versus trying to fake the funk. So
I mean, you said it right. The masculinity. I mean, how many guys want to stop and ask for directions? I know that may seem a little outdated because we have iPhones and we can just plug in our GPS, but how often do you stop and just ask for, hey, how do I get there? Without a phone? Anybody watching this, I try going somewhere you've never been without your phone and see if you can get there. You might have to stop and ask for directions and be willing to take their advice.
Yeah. Is there and it may not be top of mind, but an example on a time when you went into a situation open, but also fearful, and it turned out way better than you thought it would be, and you was received, like maybe you were asking for help or sharing a part of you where it's like, hey, here's something I'm working on, and the effect that it had blew your mind.
Yeah, it's actually something I'm going through, and I'll be open, transparent, because that's the kind of person I am. Just recently, my wife was like, hey, your anger comes out this way. And I know it's been stressful with the loss of a job and going through this and trying to go through that. But it's been something over our course of our marriage that it's great 95% of the time. But this 5%, whenever this anger comes out, it can be destructive. And I've kind of, again, for 12, 13 years was like, hey, it's all right. It's just 5%. And I've minimized that. So talking with someone that says, hey, your minimization of other person's feelings, again, even though I want to serve and protect these same people, I've minimized their feelings, not to, I guess, what I thought they were over dramatizing or maximizing something that was smaller. I was instead minimizing it, instead of bringing it to a neutral playing field and kind of like the compromise. Hey, I understand this is hard for you. So this past year, long story short, I met with a counselor, someone that says, hey, here's what I'm doing. Here's what my wife sees. I don't fully agree with it, but she says she sees something in me that I want to fix for the betterment of our marriage. So I've been meeting with them weekly for about 4 months now.
Wow.
And then part of it was, hey, find someone to hold yourself accountable. Find 2 people, find someone local, pull those people in to allow them to see you and be okay with being real.
Yeah.
It's so easy that we can post anything we want on Instagram and make our lives look a certain way. But it's when you allow people to see who you really are, you can affect that change because you're open and transparent about it.
Man, that's good and deep, because I think about that a lot in companies, in churches, and just groups of friends, of families as well too, of like, how much do we share what's happening with us? Or are there people looking on the inside thinking that we have the perfect life, but like we never share, right? Like you go on Instagram or wherever, and it's like the highlight reel. But there's never like, here's how I failed today, or here's something I'm really struggling with. It doesn't get clicks, it doesn't get the views, but there's something about it. You can't fully build trust without that deep like extension of like, man, like this is something I'm wrestling with. And we're not trying to like normalize it, that if it's something that's bad, but it's like we want to create a space where people feel like it's like a non-judgmental place where I can share what I'm going through and you can share what you're going through, and we can just sit with it. And I was like, all right, man, we're both humans,
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to, versus thinking that we're supposed to be this perfect species, AI robot that's like emotionally tuned, 100% always gets it right. And deep down, no one believes it, but it's like, no one ever thinks, why can't I just like share that part of me? Like, and I get it. Like there's fear of being hurt. It's fear of like, if I do share this part of me with this person, what will they think about me? Will they think I'm any less? Will they think, that I don't have it together? And it's one of the things that I've found in my life is that the more when I share stuff and it's greeted with this non-judgmental awareness and love and acceptance, the more that I'm encouraged to share. But if I share something and someone's like, duh, you're a guy, why are you crying? Like I will shut down and I never want to share with that person again,
Yeah.
It's interesting threads, man.
Yeah, my wife actually met with someone in our small group. Again, we have a small group that's something, again, that I added over this past year. We've always had a small group of friends, but this is actually through our church. And it was like, how do we do life, real life together, and be open and transparent with each other? And it's like, how do we eliminate the judgment-free zone of, hey, whatever you came in, I love that same person that walked in, and if you're walking out, I still love you the same, even though you just shared this with me, because I'm here to carry it with you. I'm here to ask you those questions, to be that support for you. Because later on this week, you might run into a situation where you're like, hey, I just need to talk to you about this. And now that you've opened up, you're not dropping something new. You're asking for the help for us to go along together with you.
Totally. Cool, man. Well, Tyler, thank you. We'll definitely have you back on this to share some updates in the next couple of months. I'm hoping that this become ongoing conversations, that these are not one-offs, and that people will see not only growth, but you'll share. I'm sure you have tons more growth opportunities that have happened that you are open to share. Thank you for hopping out, man.
I appreciate it. Thank you for inviting me. Love to be here.